Hello again and welcome to our health blog. This month I want to ask you a question. Are you overweight? You may not want to even consider the question, but it is an important question. If we wear loose clothing, we can hide the fact that we are overweight from other people, but we can't hide the fact from ourselves. Now, is it just a case of appearances, that we look better if we're slimmer, or does it really matter to our health? Well, yes, it does matter to our health, and I want to consider with you a few of the ways that being overweight can affect us. The first thing that suffers is our heart. Now, if you make a fist, that's about the size of our human heart. It has 4 chambers, and its job, of course, is to pump blood all around the body, every minute of every day of our lives. Now, it does this through the arteries and the capillaries, and the blood returns through the veins. Now, if of course we've got lots of fat in our body, pushing the blood through the arteries, through those capillaries, to the extremities of our body is very hard work for our heart. And so the blood pressure has to go up. And that's a bad thing because our hearts will wear out quicker. Also, our lungs find it more difficult to breathe if there's a lot of fat around them. And we tend to puff and pant, just doing ordinary things about the house. Another thing is that if fat is deposited around vital organs, they too can find their job more difficult. The liver, the pancreas, the kidneys. Now, things like gallstones and pancreas problems like diabetes develop if we're too fat. And so making sure that these internal organs have not got too much fat surrounding them, that's very important for our health. Also think about our legs, our knees, joints, ankles. They have to bear extra weight if we are carrying too much weight. And of course the joints swell, become painful. So there are 4 good reasons why we should consider this question, are we overweight, as being an important thing to consider. It is a very important question. Now, how can we tell the answer? How can we know the answer? Well, a very good sign is that we can't get into clothes that we used to be able to wear. That favourite dress or those trousers that you really like, you can't fit into them anymore. And so that's a good sign that you are being overweight. Well, it's not a good sign, it's a bad sign. So not being able to get into clothing. Also, as I say, being out of breath easily, just walking up a hill or climbing stairs or something like that. So not being able to get into clothes and losing our breath easily. Now, if we want a more scientific way of knowing if we're overweight, then I suggest that we look at 2 things. First of all, the BMI, and secondly, the waist to hip ratio. Now, the BMI, the body mass index, that needs to be measured with certain equipment. Of course, we will need a tape measure, and secondly, we will need a weighing machine. Now, having got a weighing machine, you'll be able to know your personal weight. It will come up on the screen here, and I weigh myself most mornings. And knowing your height, tape measure will tell you your height. Now, I measured myself this morning. My weight was 65.2 kgs. And that's not bad for me because I want to be around 65 kgs. And so I was quite pleased with that weight this morning. And my height, I'm 5'6", is 168 centimetres or 1.68 metres. Now, the body mass index is calculated like this. It's quite a complex little calculation. You can do it online if this is going to be too difficult for you to calculate and you haven't got a calculator, because a calculator is the other thing that you will need apart from the tape measure and the weighing machine. The body mass index is calculated like this. You put your weight on the top line. Now I work in kilograms, so 65.2 kgs on the top line, divided by the height in meters squared. So I put into my calculator 65.2 divided by 1.68 and then divide by 1.68 again. And the answer to that calculation was 23.1. 23.1 is my body mass index. Now what does that exactly mean? Is it good or is it bad? How can I tell? Well, you need to know what is a healthy range and what is an unhealthy range. A BMI of less than 18.5 is too thin. You need to put on some weight. But between 18.5 and 24.9, that's a normal range. Over 24.9, in other words 25 to 29.9, that is overweight, and over 30 is obese. Now happily, I am in the middle of a healthy range. 23.1 is in the middle of the normal range. So my BMI is fairly good. But what about the waist to hip ratio? Now, I know that for a man, a good waist to hip ratio is 0.95. We need to get worried when our waist is bigger than our hips. So we don't want a figure over 1. So knowing 0.95 was about the ideal, I thought, well, I'll measure myself. My waist measurement in centimetres was 84 centimetres, and my hips 87. So I put into the calculator 84 divided by 87, and the answer was 0.96. So I was reasonably pleased. 0.95 is the ideal, 0.96 not too bad. Now this waist to hip ratio is a better indication than BMI, because carrying weight around the belly, around the stomach, is very dangerous. And so it is an indicator of cardiovascular problems and other degenerative diseases if you're carrying a lot of weight around your waist. So these two measurements can help us to answer the question, are we overweight? Check out your BMI either with a calculator or online. It will do the calculation for you online, and work out your waist to hip measurement. Now for a man, as I say, it's 0.95. For a woman who is shaped more like this with a thinner waist, the normal measurement of the ratio should be about 0.8. So let's, for the sake of easy maths, consider a woman who's got a waist measurement of 74 centimetres and her hips are 100 centimetres. Now that's an easy calculation. 74 divided by 100 is 0.74. So that would be healthy for a woman. Anything over 0.8, then the woman's putting on a little bit too much weight around her middle. Okay, so 0.95 for a man and 0.8 for a woman, the waist to hip ratio. So as I say, these two ways help us scientifically to know whether or not we are overweight. Now I think about myself, 65.2 kg, that gives me a BMI of 23.1. Is that okay for me? Well, I have to be happy with it. I can be within a healthy range, like between 18.5, 24.9. That's a healthy range. But I got to know myself. I could allow my weight to rise a little bit. I'm still within the healthy range, but I wouldn't feel good. You need to know yourself. If I put on a little bit more than 65, I tend to find myself puffing and panting a bit when I climb a steep hill, and it's not good. I don't want that. So ask the Lord, pray about it and say, Lord, what weight do you want me to be? And then whatever you're at peace about, aim at that weight. For me, as I say, it's 65 kg. I hope that by knowing about these two scientific methods of answering the question, it will have helped you. So stay healthy, and I'll see you again next month.